Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to the September 21st City Council work session. Welcome to everyone here and at home. So we've had a slight addition to our schedule today, and we're going to have first, before we get into the work session on strategic communications, we're going to have a presentation on the Oregon Prescription Drug Program. Assistant City Manager.
Great. I'm just going to introduce Marie Dowd, our risk manager, and let her kick it off.
Hi. I am here to talk to you about the Oregon Prescription Drug Plan. I think this has come up because many of you are familiar with the National League of Cities Prescription Drug Plan. Mm-hmm. And the state of Oregon has a drug plan that's very similar but offers twice the discount to the member. The most recent information I've received from the National League of Cities within the last few weeks indicates they have the discount averages 23%, and the Oregon Prescription Drug Plan discount averages 45%. It's a program created by the
Must be
That's Alan.
Councilor Zelenko. Well, welcome to the meeting. We're getting a presentation now.
I'll mute.
Okay.
Good idea.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Very much.
All right, continue.
I have a button.
The Oregon Prescription Drug Plan was actually created by the state legislature in 2003, and the purpose is to provide Oregon residents who are uninsured or underinsured with access to discounted prescription drugs. It's become quite large. They even have a consortium with the state of Washington, and I think they're up over 500,000 members. They have 28,000 members just in Lane County. So I am advocating that we promote the Oregon Prescription Drug Plan, since it's our own plan and the discounts are far greater, twice as good as National League of Cities. We've got handouts that I gave you sample handouts, and we have gotten a bunch of handouts for the city manager's office so they can be available at the financial planning day, and then in the city manager's office and in the atrium as well, the library. We can make them available throughout city facilities where we're meeting a lot of the public. It's a totally free program, and it's even available to people who have insurance. So if you have insurance but there's a certain drug that's not covered on the formulary, you can join the Oregon Prescription Drug Plan and in all likelihood get that drug at a greater discount than you could through an employer-sponsored plan. So it's really a wonderful asset for everybody in Oregon.
Great. And since you mentioned it as part of what would be made available on Financial Planning Day, I wonder, Kelly, if you would just make sure everybody here knows about that. Would you mind talking about that for a sec?
And I'll just say one more thing, and then I'll turn it over to Kelly, if you don't mind,
I
Mayor.
don't mind at all. No.
We've also added the Oregon Prescription Drug Plan info to the city's website.
Great.
There's now a banner called Community Resources, and we've added a link there that goes right to their homepage where people can sign up.
Can I have one real quick question?
Sure,
if I might?
of course.
On the second
I don't want you to go away, Marie. There might be more than one question. There may be many
On the
questions.
second page, you have a list of the cities and the pharmacies. Are these the only ones that are participating in this, or is this where you go to sign up for this program?
These are the participating pharmacies, but you sign up online or by phone. You don't have to sign up at the pharmacy. You'll get a card back from them.
So currently in the Eugene Sprinkler area, there's a limited number of pharmacies that's participating in, is that correct?
No. If you look, Walmart, Fred Meyer,
Is it not listed?
they all say national
Yeah.
on the next column.
Costco.
Yeah, all the major providers are participating.
Thank you.
So, actually, Kelly, she could just make some brief comments. I'm not asking for a presentation. I just thought since you brought it up, it would be an interesting thing for people to know about.
I can be very brief.
Yeah.
Some of you may recall that Financial Planning Day, the first one in Eugene, happened last year at
Sheldon, and we'll be doing it again this year in collaboration with the Financial Planners Association of the Mid-Willamette Valley. It's an initiative of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and it's happened in other communities as well. We had more than 100 community members show up last year for free financial advice.
Doing a collaboration with United Way.
And then this year, a new partner for us is United Way of Lane County will be joining us, and we're going to be doing it at Willamette High School, and we anticipate, or at least are planning for as many as 500 community members, and that will be happening on Saturday, October 22nd. And so this is just another way of providing service, no frills, no business cards, but the volunteer financial advisors are there to provide a wide variety of financial advice to people with different kinds of needs.
And they've been talking about this is something that they'll make available to people there, too.
Right.
So, thank you for that, Kelly. Did you want to ask about that?
Yes,
or-
I did. So, Kelly, how should the community prepare when they're going to go and talk to these folks?
Well, they can come in any number of ways. So what we saw last year is people coming in without having been prepared at all, and they can get advice starting from zero. We also had situations where we had a family, for instance, come in where they were trying to deal with what to do and handing off from one generation to the next, and so they just brought a pile of papers with them. So it was the full range, and we could probably get out some information, but people don't need to bring in bank statements necessarily. They can come in as they are, and just depending on what kind of financial advice they want.
Okay.
Right.
Great, thank you. Just an effort to give, in these tough times, to give us some families a boost in dealing with their financial issues at no cost. Get them on track, right?
Right.
Any other questions for Myrnie about the, yes?
And so, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So this is a good thing, the OPDP. My question, I don't know if you have the information on the specifics, but because Oregon has such a wide, varied state formulary for generic drugs, and so if you're not on a generic drug, this is really good, but on generic drugs, so is there another discount upon this?
Well, what they say, their information says their greatest discounts are on generics. So there can be discounts up to 50% on generics. So you may get a difference. It's not that every drug gets a 45% average discount. There will be differences depending on the drug.
Okay, but there's like a state formulary, so maybe I'll just look online and...
They're self-insured, and their administrator is ODS. They're the ODS pharmacy program. But I honestly, the drug list is very comprehensive, so I can't tell you if it's a real formulary or if it's basically everything on the market.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Betty?
Is eligibility based on income?
No, it's for residents in Oregon.
It's very comprehensive.
Anybody? And have you compared this with the NLC plan in other ways than that? You said it pays more, but...
I have. The NLC program is a program that we at the city would need to be involved in administering. It's co-branded or co-promoted by the city organization and the National League of Cities, and they provide materials that we would distribute, and it's a different type of program because we would need to be involved in it, in the administration, and communicating with NLC. So this Oregon Prescription Drug Program, besides having better discounts, is a program that we can promote, but we don't have to be involved in administering.
Some cities have said it's very good public relations for the cities to be helping people get lower priced prescriptions. But okay, thank you.
So I suppose you could say this could be good publicity, but we don't have to pay the cost of administrating. I guess it's that kind of combination you're looking for.
Yes.
Right.
Kind of a win-win.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you so much, Bernie.
Thank you.
Our next item is the work session on strategic communications. Assistant City Manager.
Great, thank you. Jan, you want me to go ahead and get started?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Jan will get the presentation ready. So, over the last few years, we've had a number of conversations about the need for the City of Eugene to expand and improve our overall communications with the public. This was evident through the work that you did in Eugene Counts, where you adopted outcomes that specified a desire to see improvements in transparent interactive communications and public engagement that involves the community broadly. That's just one area. These outcomes were selected because of the feedback we received from boards, commissions, community members, and even from staff. I think all of us acknowledge that while we work hard to provide consistent and thorough information for the community, we've all had experience of someone saying to us, wow, I had no idea that you guys did X, or I wish you did more of X. And you've each communicated those to us over time about wishing we did a better job of telling that story. While we believe we do a very good job of providing information and opportunities for the public to engage in the work we do, we recognized it was time to take a snapshot of our organizational communications and develop a simple and inspiring plan for how we can improve our communication efforts, or what I call telling our city story. This is not a situation unique to the City of Eugene. In fact, if you Google strategic communications plan or strategic communications, you'll come up with thousands of consultants that do this work, and you can come up with thousands of sample plans that any one of us could edit, copy, paste, and say we have a communications plan. We looked at a number of those samples, and we also looked at a lot of our local partners when we were considering the best way to proceed. We recognize we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but we were also really seeing that where these things differed is in how the character and the culture of the organization kind of comes out through the plan. So it's not as simple as kind of filling in the blanks. We were very happy to see that the University of Oregon has done some recent work around communications. They had a great plan done for them that we've pretty much used as our model, and they know that, and they've really supported it and been a great partner for us. We recognize the plan needs to capture the essence of who we are, why we do what we do, and what we do in a way that inspires our staff and our community to want to really engage with us as we kind of vision, plan, protect, and maintain our organization. Jan's going to talk about where we're at with the process and the plan, but I'd like to end by kind of a story I say to a lot of people, which is, you know, we can really, the way we tell our story the best every day is in how we interact with our customers. So it's one thing to say we're collaborative, but somebody really needs to experience that we're collaborating in order to feel like that's true. And so this really comes across in, you know, when we talk about communications, a lot of people think about our website, newsletters, emails, stories that come out in the Register Guard. What we're really talking about is in every way that we communicate. So, for example, if some of the words and ways we want to work with the public is being collaborative or being creative, I need to know that when plan review check letters go out or enforcement letters go out from planning and development, I need to know that when people read that they feel like, wow, they're going to come up with a creative solution and they're going to collaborate with me. And so we're looking at all the things we do, like in every way we communicate with the public, are we doing it in a way that reflects our values? So with that, I'll turn it over to Jan.
Thank you. Beth, I'm going to actually talk for a minute before I start this PowerPoint. So thank you all very much for this time to bring you up to date on what we're doing. We've been working on this process for a little while, and we wanted to get it to a point where we actually had something to show and tell you about, and yet not so far that, because we want to get your input and involvement in it as well. So we're kind of, you know, middle of the way in some ways. Our goals for today, we want to just kind of help you understand where we are with it all and what we're working on, and get your input and just, you know, kind of get your reading on how we're doing. So that's what we're hoping for today. You know, as Sarah was saying, this is really a lot about who we are as an organization and what we do and why we do what we do. And really, since John's been here, he's started some conversations in the organization thinking about that. Let's be more thoughtful and more intentional about that. So we really had conversations going on throughout the organization. And one of the questions in that conversation was, what do we want to be known for? And we took some of the information that really people, pretty much every single person in the organization was probably involved in one of those conversations, and started distilling that into, so what do we think of ourselves? What do we think are the important things about what we do that characterize the city of Eugene and how we do it? And, as Sarah said, we looked at other communities. We used several models. We are borrowing heavily from the University of Oregon's, but I want to say that we actually were calling it Telling Our Story before we saw their plan and realized that they were calling it that too. We didn't steal their name, but they're aware that we're using them as a model. We are doing it differently than many of these places because we are doing it kind of organically from within. We're not using consultant resources really, and we're using the expertise and the knowledge and the experience of the people within the organization. And we're kind of doing it as we go. So we'll get a piece of it, some of the foundational pieces we'll talk about in a minute, which we're calling messages or themes, and using them and then tweaking them and in sort of an iterative process. So I think those are the main points I wanted to get across before I show you the slideshow, which just tries to illustrate some of these concepts, and also that we are doing this in the collaborative sense. That's one of our key themes, and I think we're doing that. We've got. I wanted to introduce the people or at least mention the people who are on the steering committee. A couple of whom are here today. Kelly Darnell and Stuart Ramsing. We also have Alana Holmes from Central Services, Libby Tower from LRCS, Joe Epley from Fire, Melinda McLaughlin from Police, Eric Jones from Public Works, myself and Sarah are on the steering committee, and then we've actually started branching out into other committees and pulling other people. So we really have a broad collaboration within the city representing all the different parts, and also have done a lot of communication with people outside the community, although I think we will do more of that in other phases as well. We've done interviews with selected people, and we've taken some of the input we got through Eugene Counts and some of the other ways that we've been talking with the community too. And I think maybe that would be the time to start the slideshow here. And I'm a little disappointed in this because the lettering is a pretty blue, and I did it on my computer, but it's kind of black here. So next time I'll have to make it a brighter blue, I guess.
So just before we get started,
Yeah.
Johnny Medlin interviewed me, and so was he part of this group?
Johnny Medlin interviewed you? Well, how nice.
I can answer that. So,
We're also going to talk a little bit about the website project at the end of it, and Johnny's heading up that piece of it.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, he's not on our steering committee, but he's leading up a very important part of the whole deal.
Thank you.
So, telling our story. So we have here just some, in addition to words, so we have spent a fair amount of time in these early phases talking about what are our key messages or key themes in words. How do we tell our story in words? But we also tell it through images and other ways. So we've just used some photographs here, and these are just a very small sample of how we, just some examples of how we are providing community service. And so what I'll do here is, we call these key messages so far, the first 5 concepts that we're going to talk about. They could be themes. They're almost values. I mean, it's like, what is the core of what we do with the city? The 5 of them, and you'll see as we go through, are community service, quality of life, stewardship, sustainability and human rights, and leadership and collaboration. So in each of these, we've started with just like a 1 or a 2 or a 3-word title, and then we have another sentence that expands on that a little bit, and then even more text that goes on that we're not even going to talk about today that really, will help employees to know even more, what does that encompass, what does that mean, and how do we use that. So for community service, the next level statement is, we take pride in our work and are here to serve the community. Quality of life. Oh, these are just kind of dark, aren't they? Well, that's Summer in the City downtown and one of our rec activities. And the sentence that goes with that is, our services help make Eugene a great place to live, work, and play for everyone. Quality of life is a big part of what we do. Stewardship. We honor the public's trust in us to responsibly manage the city's funds, assets, and natural resources for the long-term benefit of the community. These slides focus on the natural resources and the financial resources, the slide of the merger and how we're saving money and being efficient that way with the public's dollars. Sustainability and human rights. We work to integrate social equity, economic prosperity, and environmental health in our decisions and actions. And the fifth one is leadership and collaboration. We welcome collaboration to create a stronger community while providing leadership to stimulate community building and innovation. So those are our five, as we're calling, key messages or themes, and we've been living with those, at least some of us, for a few months now, and I think that we've been feeling like they pretty well encompass the main things that we do. We really have been fine-tuning and tweaking them, and we haven't, although we've talked about them out in the community, we haven't officially said, ta-da, these are the themes, these are the messages, but we're feeling like we're getting pretty close to doing that. So moving on, then, another piece that we worked on was just some words, some personality words. Tell a little bit more about who we are, how we do our work, more about, if we were a person or what would we say about the organization. The first one of those is welcoming. Boy, these are so dark. I don't know. Is that, sorry. It was, engaging. This is a picture of the Green Schools program and the a planning project, probably Envision Eugene. Service-oriented. There's a picture there of inspecting some playgrounds and working in some pretty freezing cold. Responsive. Professional. Caring. Respectful. A good steward. And innovative. And this would actually be a good time here for you to take a hold of this little basket here and take one or two of the little goodies that are on there for you. There's some surprises inside. Somebody grab one of those. It's not scary. It's your dessert.
Your lunch dessert.
It won't bite. So take a couple and pass them on.
Could you email me one?
We'll save you some, Counselor. We'll
email it to you, Alan.
There's plenty.
What's left?
Should we open them now?
Yes, please do. And other things to go around. Yeah, so when somebody, hopefully that they untie pretty easily. Or just rip them open. Just rip them open. So when you get one open.
Boy Scout.
Oh, yeah. You're being conservative. That's, keeping track of
fortune?
Yeah, open your, and let's get see what they say.
I'm a little afraid right now.
Is it going to pop out like one of those
No, what it's
snakes
gonna
or
say.
something? Oh,
You
shouldn't
see,
be.
this is what I mean. The symbolism is killing me.
Okay. Well, there was some effort going into getting the fortunes back in there, so hopefully that all worked out fine.
Get the old ones out.
Would you be the first?
It'd be my honor.
So on one side, you should have one of the key themes or messages, and on the other side, one of the personality words, and on the back, an example that we pulled from throughout the organization of how we show that.
Well done, by the way, with the presentation. Mine says innovative, and on the back it says convenient online crime reporting for victims.
Cool. Counselor Pryor?
Mine says quality of life, and it says hundreds of free and low-cost recreation and cultural activities provided year-round.
Engaging. 47% of 4J and Bethel students are involved in Oregon Green Schools.
Leadership and collaboration. Larks, PDD, and LCC collaborated on 2 unique artistic bike corrals downtown.
This is appropriate given yesterday. Mine is on sustainability and human rights, and it's energy efficiency improvements for over 160 affordable housing units through partnerships.
All right.
And it says engaging. Neighborhood matching grants, 89 projects, $1 million, improvements to every neighborhood. I have a question.
Sure.
How did you manage to get the original fortunes out without breaking the cookies? And I see how you inserted these.
It's
Very
magic.
We're innovative.
And creative, yeah.
That's impressive all by itself.
Mine says caring. It says 90 personal follow-up calls to burglary victims each month.
Yeah, I was impressed to learn that one myself.
Can you read one for Alan down there?
Mine
I got it.
Mine says live long and prosper.
Go ahead, Pat.
This is Ducks by 17. Leadership and collaboration. City's innovative TBL framework now being adopted by other organizations.
Mine says, Alan's says, sustainability and human rights, online rec guides plus reduced print equals greater access and efficiency.
Nice. Would anybody like to read their second one?
My second one says community service. It says the Metro Fire Marshal's Office conducted 1,652 new construction inspections.
Nice.
I have a good steward. It says EPD volunteers serving 23,030 hours adds a value of almost $500,000.
I didn't open up my second one.
Okay.
This one's empty.
Oh dear. We have more.
Service-oriented. Each year, certified staff conduct over 630 playground safety inspections.
Stewardship. City manages over 4,300 acres of parks and natural areas.
Professional, it says, top national awards for finance and budget reporting for 25-plus years.
Quality of life. Better head to Jerry's. The West Bank Bike Trail now connects to Santa Clara.
All right. Great. Thank you so much. So that was a little bit of fun. One of Sarah's favorite words that hasn't made it to the official list yet that was refreshing. And we've talked about fun, so we're trying to do a little bit of that with there. So I'm going to move ahead and talk to you a little bit more about what we see as the end product of this and how it's going to work. We want to have a guide that is really a communications guide for employees with tools and resources, just some general guidance, and then actually to talk about what our principles are and goals and how you address different audiences, just some specific guidance about how using words and images, and some appendices which will include, because some of this is really related, like the public participation guidelines really relates in here, and a specific style guide. I'm going to move ahead here and show you one of the appendices is going to be what we're calling the action plan. So there's a guide that will have a longer life that will be available for employees to use, and then there was an action plan that will be for a 1-2 year time frame. That what are some things that we really want to focus on in the next couple of years to make some improvements, and that's one place in particular where I think you guys will all have some suggestions, and we really want to hear what you have to say. So moving ahead, so the goals were included in your AIS, and so under each of the goals, then we'll have some strategies and some actions, and this will just give you a little bit of a sense. We're really just starting to develop this, but this is what we have so far. Under the goal of building the positive relationship and understanding between the community and the city, we want to find ways of more proactively identifying the meaningful stories that we want to tell. I think this was something Sarah mentioned in her introduction. The feedback that we've gotten as we're working on this is that, we do a pretty great job most of the time about telling the stories of particular projects and programs, and sometimes what we don't do is tell the overall city story or integrate the different pieces. So I think that's one of the things we want to focus on a little bit more. Finding new and better ways to communicate those, finding specific ways, doing things to support all employees to understand their role as communicators and storytellers, as Sarah was saying, in their interactions all the time, and what are some things that we can do, including these tools, but also trainings and different ways of doing it. And we're continuing to work with the traditional media, but also looking for new and different strategies for getting our stories out. moving to inform community members and actively support their involvement, using our new website to engage people online. We'll talk a little bit more about the website in just a minute. That's clearly one of our most important communication and engagement tools, and with our new website it will be even more so. There will be a lot of, our goals will be, at least in part, addressed by the new website. Increased use of media and video and social media. We've started organizing now people who social media started being used by the city in a very also dispersed and organic way, and that's okay and that's good and that makes sense with the medium, but we want to also be coordinated and connected, and we're working more on that. And implementing the public participation guidelines. Present a cohesive identity of the city, consistently incorporating our key themes and messages in our communications, just having people be aware of them and realizing, oh yeah, this is one of the things we can tell about why we're doing this, and why it's important. Implementing consistent use of city visuals and identifying elements, and finding and using opportunities to present the city services in a more integrated way. We've just started talking about that, but more cross-promotion. Can we at the library talk more about what we're doing in other places where people come? And then create city communications that are accessible and responsive to the community and its diverse cultures and groups. Again, there's a number of things outlined in the diversity and equity strategic plan, and so we're working to implement those and know more about our growing communities. And then we will talk about, that's kind of it on the overall plan, and we'll move to the website development. When we do that, then we can go back and have questions about the whole thing. This is a slide from a bigger slide presentation that we've been using with some staff teams inside about the website, talking about there's been a lot of input gathered in working on the new website. And as you know, just to give you a little bit more of an introduction, this is one of our most important communication and interaction tools. And I think that you know that the vendor that provides the existing website is discontinuing that product. So that was an impetus for us to look at. And we had some issues, some things we wanted to address and improve anyway. We believe that the new website is going to be much improved, and we're really excited about providing that to the community. We're working with a vendor called Civic Plus, who's done a lot of work with other city governments. That's a specialty of theirs. They've currently provide more than 900 local government websites and covering 30 million citizens. So we did, as I said, got a lot of opinions from staff, from the public. We did a web survey, as well as talking to council members in the community. So that's when Johnny was talking with all of you, and there were lots of that going on. Some of the themes that we heard was that we want it to be the workings of it to be decentralized, so different people throughout the city can update it in a simple way, but that it's still an integrated content management system. It's interactive. This just gives you some idea. Supporting video and graphics and social media is important. Being more non-cluttered professional design, easy and intuitive navigation, good search functionality. Those are some of the things we heard about that we're trying to address. And then this is just a little bit more about Civic Plus and some of their websites. Again, the slide doesn't really do it justice, but their websites are very nicely designed. We're actually, I think, even going to be pushing them a little bit further in the design. They have some, sort of standard things that they've varied. We're going for a pretty clean look. We'll see how it all comes out, but I think it's going to be very exciting. And I think you did get some information about the selection process. We did a lot of outreach to a lot of vendors, both within Oregon and outside. No Oregon vendors responded, and that was too bad, but we are very happy with the vendor that we have, because they have extensive experience. It's a big project. The current city website has more than 800 pages, 12,000 image files, and 18,000 documents. We're going to try to slim that down a little bit, but it's a big website with a lot of information. So there are a number of people engaged in it, and and Johnny and Laura Hammond as well are both here and have more specific information on that and the process if you would like. So with that, I think that's what we have to communicate. We'd love to hear any comments, questions. Oh, I guess the next thing, I'm sorry, to wrap up. So next steps, we are continuing to work on and refine these pieces. It's our goal to have mostly finished product by the end of the calendar year, and we want to talk with all of you. And I will be, setting up some time to talk with all of you and get comments individually, so you don't feel like you have to say whatever, this is not your one shot. We definitely want to hear from you. And some parts of the action plan will be specifically addressed toward council work and council goals, and how do we communicate about those. And so we will be talking more about that.
So I just want to say thank you for that, and I'm really pleased to see the work on communications. I know we're going to add more pieces to it, but I'm really pleased with the work that's been done. I think we've all expressed a strong desire for that to happen, so we appreciate it happening. And but I have to say, though, I want to tell you that I also appreciate the improvements you made to our current site. It is light years ahead of where it was just a short time back, so I appreciate that and look forward and excited about the possibilities of a site that is more functional for getting input and engaging the public in our work. So.
If I could just interject, the timeline calls for the new website hopefully to be launched in May, which is great and exciting and will keep us really busy. In the meanwhile, we have our existing website, and if you have comments, suggestions, issues, if it's a technical issue, it's ISD, but if it's a content, especially homepage issue, and there's something you'd like to see up there, let me know.
And the only thing that came to my mind as I was watching all of the what I thought were really good pieces that you have in there is just a suggestion that we are careful to sort of acknowledge the past as we move into the future, that sort of respecting good work that's been done in the past that allows us to move forward and build on what's come before. I just think that's an important message for all those who've been engaged to the work of the city for such a long time, and we're in a fortunate place to take a leap forward, but every time you take a leap forward, you're leaping off of the people who've done the work before you. So that would be my only suggestion for you to be conscious of that, because I know I've been through that kind of discussion before, and I know how important it is. So,
thank you.
Chris, you're in the key here.
Oh, thank you. Great work. I really appreciate the presentation. I'm glad that you're taking this initiative and working on this, and it really makes me think. It reminds me of conversations I've had with folks about the concept of branding, because in a way we're kind of talking about branding, and a lot of folks, when they talk about branding, they think you're talking about a logo and a new letterhead, and that is really not what branding is. Branding in its real true form is, I guess a simple way to put it would be, don't start talking the talk unless you're ready to walk the walk. And so what that says is, our strategic communications isn't just this. This is the important part of it, but it's almost like the part that comes after you have done the more important part, which is creating the culture that this communicates, tells us about. If we don't have that culture, then there's no point in talking about it, because then you're actually making a promise that you're not going to deliver on, and it'll make people more angry than if you hadn't said anything at all.
Right.
That's the lead up to say that what the work you are doing here, which is incredibly important work, cannot go anywhere unless it's built on we having to also be involved. So everyone within the city organization, and that includes us as elected officials, have to be a part of this initiative, because if we're not walking this walk, don't spend a dime on it. Because I've seen other organizations and agencies spend $250,000 talking the talk without really having a feeling that they're walking the walk, and that's a waste of money, and it can actually have a negative impact.
It has to be authentic.
It's got to be authentic, and that's really the word that it leads up to. It's got to be authentic. It has to speak with truth and authority, and it's got to be accountable. And if it can have those three elements in it, then it's real, and people will believe you, and then it has the impact I think we're looking for. That's really kind of a long way around of saying this is the starting point for how what the work you're working on has to be reflected in the work that we're doing. If I'm not out there being honest and truthful and open-minded and authoritative and accountable and authentic, your work is wasted. It's an absolute waste of time. I then have to make a commitment to support the work that you're doing by reinforcing a culture that we want to have. So that's really me leading up to say, I'm prepared to do that. I believe that you want to do this and this is important work. Therefore, I have to be willing to support that work by walking the walk that you're going to be talking about. And that's really the sum total of what I think needs to be my commitment to you as well as helping you make this work.
Andrea.
Gee, Chris, that was very inspirational.
What he said.
I actually had more of a comment about, you were talking about us telling our story of the city and the work that we do. I'm wondering if the conversation has, if on the website design, when things come across that are negative impact to the city, if there was thought of how do we kind of deflect or tell our side of the story or just basically tell the truth. At times it seems like, there's stuff in the newspaper, comments are made at other tables, and, it sounds like defending, but I think that, if we're really telling the truth, then, we need to be able to be vocal about, our side of the story, basically. So I don't know how that would look or how that would feel or if it would be an individual case-by-case scenario. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to spend the whole time looking for everything to say, that's not true and that's not true. But there's been a couple of, sentinel events that I think the city would have, you can talk to the reporters, but the reporter's only going to report what they want. And so I think this would be an opportunity for us to be able to kind of get the message out there clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
And to kind of add to what Chris was saying earlier, I know you're planning on, this was sort of an internal exercise, and then you're planning on working with us and all of that. But I think the tandemness of it all really matters, and so as we go into our goal processes and all of that, we have to kind of think about reflecting those values as we go about making our goal decisions and our strategic decisions too. So how we keep that in tandem is an important piece of this. This is work we're doing together.
Thank you.
Others? Anybody else have any? Alan, you have anything you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I just, too, wanted to reflect on what Chris said and say thank you for the hard work of everybody on this. Something that I've thought we've needed for a couple of years, and I'm really, really happy to see how thoroughly you've got it organized, and look forward to helping with the process. I think our work to try and update our goals and outcomes and our vision and our mission can work really well to kind of add some further clarification to that work with this and have it, as the mayor said, work in tandem better. I think they're dual tracks that help the city function better. And I'll look forward to working with you on it.
Great.
Good job.
So this to me is actually telling the story of our organization and the work we do on behalf and with the city, right? All of us.
Yes.
But there's also the other story that you've heard me bring up numerous times, which I know we're thinking about too, which is sort of the story of our city, and that makes it easy for people to access and understand Eugene, and know a little bit about where we came from and all the components that make us the city that we are. And still remains a large interest of mine. We have several projects going. One I know about is collaboration with one of the schools where kids are going to be working on doing, I think at Camas Ridge, where kids are going to be doing a project on some of the important places in Eugene, and then their hope, I think, is to what do you call those little things that you use your iPhone and you...
The QR code.
The QR code.
The QR code, yeah, so that you can take your your phone with you and do the QR code and get a piece of history of our community, making it easier for people to access. So those are sort of different tracks of who we are as a city, but they're all important, and often it's not so easy for people who come in our community to understand either one of those. So I think
Right.
I have real desire for both of those, the story of how we act as a city government and as electeds, and the story of our community that really honors all the people who've gone in this kind of incredible, wonderful bunch of stories that go with that. Yeah.
Can I jump in on that a little bit? One of the things, I know exactly what you mean, and I appreciate that. And yes, this effort is focused on the City of Eugene organization as a little bit distinct and different from the community, the city with a small c. And that is important too. And we've talked about that. And I've started a video project to try to help with that. We need to re-aim that a little bit, still work on that. But the thing I particularly want to mention is next year is Eugene's 150th anniversary, as a 150th anniversary of our incorporation. And a staff team is meeting, and we have met with a number of community partners who are very interested in that, and so we'll be coming back to you with that with something soon. But I think that's a huge opportunity that we want to have some things in place to help tell that story, and we'll have people coming out of the woodwork already to help us tell parts of that story. And so I agree with you. I think
know
it's big.
President Riviere is very interested in the university helping us tell that story, too. So
they've volunteered, I don't know, 6, 8 people they've got that have put their hand up and said, we want to help. So
It is. It's a tough word, too.
And
It
just
is a
to
tough
give you
word.
a little flavor of what we're thinking about is that's the opportunity to talk about the timber history of this area, of the Nike history, of the environmental history, of all the different kinds of pieces that and very different parts of our community that make up how we grew as a city and who we are. So and they're very interesting, and they're very different, and they really actually capture some of the major themes of this entire state for historically. So it's a very interesting story. Betty and then Andrew.
Are you going to use the Masonic Cemetery as a headquarters?
There's a headquarters.
You know that Eugene Skinner is buried there. And a couple of years ago, they had a ceremony there representing celebrating his 100th birthday. And it's also the site of the first school and the first first president of the university, the first governor of Oregon, are all buried there.
That's great.
There is a gathering place at the top of the hill.
I realize it's an important place. I didn't know all those things, and we do have involvement from the folks at the Historical Museum, who I'm sure are much more aware of all that. But thank you. That's a good point.
It's in a lot better shape now.
Andrea?
Oh, my. So that's great. That's good to know. Good news to hear that we're going to be doing that celebration. I'm not quite sure how to frame this, but there's things that are also in the history of the city that people aren't so good. And so I'm hoping that we can acknowledge the African American community and their removal of the Ferry Street Bridge area to accommodate that building. So if there's some history that, if there's urban legends about how that was done, I don't know the truth. I tried to look it up at different times, and I haven't really been able to see anything in documentation outside of articles in the newspaper from some of the elders of that community. So if we could make sure that we get that perspective, because I think that that's a really important piece of history here. And that's all. Thank you.
Well, there's also, and I think this is something that we can thank the university for, the Knight Library this year has taken it upon itself to be the history keeper of the migrant people in our state and in our area, and the stories of their lives, which haven't very much been talked about either. So we have a lot of things to use to tell stories. And one of the things I've had the most interest in on High Street, there are 2 of the first houses that could be owned by African Americans in our community. It had to be bought by a white person, but in order for them to have them, but there's a whole story there right up on High Street. Those houses are still there and very much part of the history of our community. So there's a lot of interesting stories.
Well, yeah, there is, and not to say that there hasn't been things to acknowledge some communities. I can't say the
Easy
word.
for you to say.
The monument that's at the Holt Center of where the Japanese were interned. I think that that is a very beautiful, very touching piece of our history that we acknowledged and I can't say rectified, but definitely acknowledged that it happened. So something along that line would be great. So thank you.
Since you brought that up, there are also the Chinese people who were servants and were buried in the alleys back to the Masonic Cemetery again. So sometimes when they sell a plot and people start digging, they find bones that their graves were not marked. And
Interesting, huh?
another group of people who used to live here. But I agree that we should look for the good things and the bad things, and when we talk about our history.
So, Jan, I think everybody really appreciates the work that's been done thus far, and feel like you've really, I know a lot of people have been part of getting to this point, and we're appreciative of that and feel like we're really making progress. So, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks.
All right, anything else for the good of the order today?
No, I think that's it.
All right, thank you all.
You get to leave early.
I can leave early.